Okay, welcome back. This video we're going to discuss or describe some tips for increasing successful grant applications. And some of these are maybe tips, some of them may be just reinforcements of some of the other items that we've discussed and some of the other components of some of the videos. But we want to share these with you because it's important that you take some of these things in consideration when looking at how do we make that grant application and enhance our opportunities for success with it. So the first is obviously the project description. I can't overemphasize this enough. We've talked about the importance of first, before we even go searching grants, that we have a solid project and we know what we want to do with it, and we want that to achieve some type of objective that helps to move our organization forward in achieving its priorities or goals of objectives. So the project description, one of the real keys of that is to make sure that it's clear and concise, and really that it paints the picture for the reader. So they should be able to, after reading your grant application, have a pretty good sense for how you see this program being offered, how you're going to deliver that program, and what your purpose and what your objectives are for that. They need to be able to almost be able to visualize that before it ever happens. So, we don't often these days have the opportunity to put in or have it all on a video. So we need to use the written word to describe that. So it's important that it's very clear, gives me the details so that in essence, it's almost like my instruction manual. As reading that, I could maybe be able to go out there and do your project because I have a really good sense of what are the key components of that. Another tip is be confident in the language or the tone that you use in presenting your proposal. You use language like "we will" or "we plan to" versus "oh, we hope to." If you hope to, it doesn't give a whole lot of sense to me as that grant agency or whatever, the review of that grant, to think, oh yeah, they've got a lot of confidence that this is going to happen. And if you don't have confidence that it's going to happen, why should I, as the grant agency or the reviewer, think that you've got a whole lot of success to make it happen? So you don't have to blow this one up. You don't have to blow your horn too much or overstate stuff on this. But you could put it in that language that does do those things. Say "we will," or "we plan to." That's our plan. We've got a game plan here. We've got a strategy for how we want to do these things. This is what we see as the outcome and how these things link. So use that kind of language. Another area that comes up often with groups, and there's not a right and a wrong on this, but is how do we deal with attachments? Some organizations or some grants, as I said earlier, are strictly give us a letter indicating what it is you want to do or your format in the proposal in that kind of a format, where others will have specific questions that they want you to complete as part of the process. So most organizations will allow you to make some kind of attachments with it, but make sure if you do use those attachments that they strengthen your proposal, not complicate it. Okay, put the information in there that's going to help because there wasn't simply enough space or you couldn't condense it enough to capture some of the really important things. But don't add attachments just to make the application thicker or to make it look like it's more important than it actually is. The clearer you can be on your proposal, and remember, you want to paint the picture. You don't want to cloud that picture for those people that are looking at or reviewing your grant. And also make sure that those are positioned in sequence. Often I look at grant applications and I see them, and all of a sudden the grant is almost attached as an appendix rather than relevant to where that question is actually asked in the grant application, and it's very difficult to continue a train of thought or for that to really benefit it. And often when we look at some of these things, if we don't have a good idea of what that project is, and all of a sudden I'm going through and the next thing is I see the budget in there and it doesn't make any sense with what I've heard to date on the project. As a grant reviewer, if I'm looking at 100 grants for that one project, I don't want to be flipping back and forth to try and lose my train of thought on what it was that you're actually trying to do. So it's important. Attachments can be very good. Some grants may say that they don't want any attachments. If it's not clear, feel free to contact that grant administrator to get some input and some suggestions from them as to whether or not it's okay for you to do attachments and what format those should be best put in. I always say this one to people: answer every question. And that's different than completing every question. I go through numerous applications on a yearly basis that I look at, and there's all kinds of written information in that question, but they didn't come close to answering what was actually asked in the question. If a good place to always start with that, and a little tip on that is to make sure you start your response to that question in response to what it was that they asked. So if they said, "How is this?" Uh, what's your plans for sustainability of this program from a financial perspective, then make sure you start your response with our plan to make this sustainable financially is to, or whatever. Answer the questions, but make sure you do that. Just don't fill it up with a bunch of words that really don't answer the question, or don't help the person who's reviewing the application be able to assess it. Neatness and presentation counts. Realize that when you're doing this, this is only one grant that you're doing for that program, but there could be hundreds of grant applications that that person is reviewing for that specific program, and they may be doing that in a week or 2 week period. Some of those people that are doing it may be volunteers who are reviewing those grants. So their time is valuable. If they've got to go through your application, or if they've gone through 80 applications and all of a sudden they're looking at yours, they can't read half of it because it's handwritten and it's not very legible, or there's all kinds of attachments but they're out of order, or your project really isn't clear, as we talked about at the beginning of a lot of these modules. It's going to be difficult for them to want to put the effort in, because if you haven't put it in, they're going to say, well, at the end of the day, you know what? I've got too many good ones in here that this one doesn't even meet the filter of whether or not we should even consider it. So that neatness and presentation, it counts. The other part of that is it's a reflection. Your application is a reflection not only of you, but of your organization. So make sure that it's something that you would be proud of. Make sure that it's something that other people on your board would see, or associated with your organization would see and want to be a part of as well, as opposed to saying, "Oh my gosh, what got sent in here, and why does that do it? I wouldn't support that application based on the way it looks." Another tip that, as with all these things, grants do have deadline dates. So with all of us, we usually work towards that deadline date. But if you have the opportunity, and I would strongly encourage you to take the time to make sure you have at least your application in a draft format, that you can give that to some other people, some fresh eyes to talk about, doing some editing on it, looking at the feedback or giving you feedback, reviewing the application. Does it make sense to them? Maybe somebody who has absolutely no idea about your organization or the project that you're doing, because if they don't understand it, then that'll help you be able to figure out how you might be able to make it clearer, or talking to them about what it is you actually meant in that often will give you some tips on how you can make that clearer and more concise for the actual person who's going to be reviewing the grant. And once again, we've talked about the potential role of the grant administrator in many of these programs, and one of the uniquenesses with applying for grants. So they will often, you could provide it to them in a grant in a draft format, and they'll take a look at that and provide you some tips, some feedback. So it's really important, and it's a good to think of. I don't have all the answer sheets, or I don't have to have it all ready to go before I do it. Get it in there, and then so give yourself some time so you can take some of that feedback from those individuals and be able to strengthen your application for when you do actually finally submit it. I can't overemphasize, enough that the having a good project and putting the time and effort in the beginning of your of developing that project, it's the key to any kind of grant. If I don't have a good project, I really don't have anything to write about to develop my grant proposal, and that's going to be reflective in the actual application. As we did talk about in 3.1 here, all grants and formats are different. Be aware of that, and make sure though that you follow whatever the process is for the grant that you're making the application for. And as we talked about earlier, utilize that grant administrator and use them to as well build that relationship. Often within these organizations, they may have some other contacts that they may be aware of that can help you out with other projects that you might be looking for. And also with a lot of these organizations, you can come back in future years, maybe not for the same project, Most grant applications don't do multi-year funding or allow you to come back, but they may have other grant projects that you have or new initiatives that you want to do the following year. Build some of those relationships and start to work on those. And those people can help you. That grant administrator can be a great support and resource to you and your organization for many years as you go down the road. So that wraps us up for section 3.2 here on some tips, and hopefully these will be useful to you as you go forward in completing your actual grant applications. Thank you.